Some people are so good at telling their own story that it feels like you were there. Rosa is here to introduce you to some of those people, past and present, who have let us in on their lives.
Hi, I'm Rosa, and I don't know about you, but I keep a diary of all the stuff that happens to me. It would probably be pretty boring if anyone else read it. But imagine if your diary was all about an important time in history, and it was read by millions of people. Well, that's what happened to the diary of Anne Frank, written while she hid from the Nazis during World War II. It's probably the most famous diary ever written. Years and years later, her experience makes us ask, what does it take to be brave and stand up for what you believe? Here's Anne Frank's amazing story.
A timeless voice.
Germany's Nazi dictator, Adolf Hitler, was invading countries all over Europe. And everywhere the German soldiers went, they rounded up Jews and other groups and sent them to their deaths. Millions of people were in danger. One of them was Anne Frank, a young Jewish girl who lived with her family in Amsterdam, the capital of Holland. The Germans had taken over Holland, and the Franks knew they could be next. So in 1942, just days after Anne's 13th birthday, the Franks went into hiding. Bringing only what they could carry without being noticed, Anne, her parents, her sister, and 4 other Jews moved into a secret annex, a hiding place above her father's office. For 2 years, these 8 people were crammed into 4 small rooms. They had no contact with the outside world, except for radio broadcasts about the war. A few friends secretly brought them food and supplies. Anne filled her days writing in her diary. She wrote about ordinary things, like growing up, having a crush on Peter, a boy in the annex, and fighting with her mother. And about terrifying things, like the war that was going on all around her.
November 19th, 1942. In the evenings when it's dark, I often see long lines of good, innocent people walking on and on, marched to their death, and all because they are Jews.
On August 4th, 1944, the Nazis burst into the Franks' secret annex and took the family away. Anne was sent to a concentration camp, where she died about 6 months later, just weeks before the camp was freed. She was 15 years old. Against all odds, Anne Frank's diary was rescued from the annex by a family friend. It was turned into a book 2 years after the war ended. Since then, it has been translated into more than 70 languages and sold over 30 million copies. Though Anne herself did not survive, her spirit and her love of writing live on.
April 5th, 1944. I want to be useful or bring enjoyment to all people, even those I've never met. I want to go on living even after my death. So onward and upward with renewed spirits. It'll all work out because I'm determined to write.
Can you imagine being on one of those shows where they put a bunch of strangers on an island and make them eat gross things and fight with each other while 50 million people watch it on TV? I'd vote myself off the island. Well, if you think TV can't get any more real, then meet Ellen MacArthur, who let the cameras roll as she took on the toughest sailing competition in the world, all by herself. People saw her at her best, her worst, and everything in between. How does our environment affect us? Take a look at everything Ellen sailed through.
Sailing into history.
Can you imagine spending 3 months sailing the world from top to bottom and back again? All by yourself? Ellen MacArthur did it, and she kept a video diary of her journey for the whole world to see. Talk about reality TV. Ellen wasn't just cruising for a bruising. Being in the Vendée Globe race, the world's toughest sailing competition, was a lifelong dream come true. As a girl growing up in England, Ellen had to save her lunch money to buy her first small boat. But after proving herself in a lot of competitions, she was given a yacht for the big race. And on November 5th, 2000, Ellen set off from France for the grueling 26,000-mile nonstop voyage. This was no ordinary day at the races. Things like 60-foot waves in the Atlantic and icebergs in the Antarctic kept her awake for days at a time.
I feel like my energy has been sucked away and I have nothing left.
And then there was the time she had to fix a damaged sail during a wild storm. Don't you hate when that happens? Sometimes it was almost too much to take.
God.
What kept her going? A strong will? A strong stomach? And lots of encouragement from friends and supporters who kept in touch by satellite phone and on the internet. And besides, it wasn't all rough seas and heavy lifting. Sometimes it was smooth sailing, and that made it all worthwhile.
Look at it! 25 knots of breeze and blue sky. Clear, clear blue sky. It's fantastic.
It's been one of those evenings. You know, the sun sets, leaving a beautiful pink and orange sky, so delicately shaded that you wonder how nature can be so perfect.
After 94 days, Ellen sailed back into port and into the record books. At 24, she was the fastest and youngest woman to have ever sailed across the world solo. And what do you do when you come back from the biggest ocean challenge of your life? Fix up a house near the sea where you can write a book about your adventures. But do you think Ellen will spend much time at home? Not likely.
I love comic strips. They just crack me up. But do you ever wonder, where do they get this stuff? Who makes it up? Well, the two guys who create the comic strip Baldo are really just writing about themselves, their families, the funny stuff that happens to them, and the things they see in their neighborhoods. What does your family and your neighborhood make you think about? Let's meet Hector and Carlos and see how Baldo gets born.
Bringing up Baldo.
These eyes turn this world into this world. Meet Hector Cantu. He writes, and his partner Carlos Castellanos illustrates the Hispanic comic strip called Baldo.
I didn't see any comic strips that related to me as a Hispanic in the United States. They kind of reflected my life growing up.
So he and Carlos decided it was time to make one up. It's about the life of a teenager named Baldo, his kid sister Gracie, their wild aunt Tia Carmen, and a dad who puts up with all of them. But it's really about ordinary stuff that's just funny.
Ideas come from everywhere, from TV, magazines, newspapers, from everywhere.
With his trusty notebook, wireless keyboard, and even his cell phone, Hector writes down or records even the hint of inspiration. Now comes the tricky part, turning ideas into jokes, and making jokes work in a comic strip.
The main rule for me is sticking under 25 to 30 words a strip.
But words are only half the fun of a comic strip, and Hector needs pictures. That's where Carlos comes in. The wild part of this partnership is that Hector's in Texas and Carlos is in Florida, and they've only met a few times in person. But thanks to the phone and the internet, they can discuss their ideas, email words and sketches back and forth, and fine-tune the finished product until, bingo, Baldo.
Sergio, I think you've done a great job raising the children.
I couldn't have done it without your help, Tia Carmen.
Where's my calculator?
Where's my car magazine?
No, I insist you deserve all the blame. I mean, credit.
You can see it in the newspaper every day, but for Hector and Carlos, it's just a little slice of real life. You can just picture it, can't you?
You can read about Jackie Robinson in history books, and older folks can remember watching him play baseball back in the 1950s. People everywhere know him as the first African American to play in the major leagues. But one person knows him in a different way. The girl who called him Dad. How does Sharon Robinson remember her famous father? What makes someone a hero in the eyes of their family and history? Let's see.
Daughter of a legend.
Another rising personality in the world of sports. Jackie Robinson of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Jackie Robinson was the first African American to play in Major League Baseball, breaking the sport's color line and paving the way for thousands of other black athletes. Millions of people called him a hero, but I just called him Dad. That's me, Sharon Robinson, with my father, Jackie, in 1951. My father's journey to the big leagues began a few years before that, around 1945, a time when the United States was still segregated. In some places, black people couldn't sit with whites on buses or even drink from the same water fountains. And black baseball players weren't allowed to play in the major leagues. At that time, Jackie Robinson was playing in the Negro Leagues, the only professional teams where blacks could play baseball. He didn't know that this man had bigger things in store for him. Branch Rickey was the general manager of the famous Brooklyn Dodgers. He wanted to bring blacks into the major leagues, and he was searching for the right player to lead the way. He heard about Jackie Robinson's reputation as a star college athlete who excelled in 6 different sports.
Robinson has it running wide.
But he needed to know if my dad was a strong person, strong enough to take the prejudice he would face. But after Branch Rickey met Jackie, he knew he had the right man. The news of a black major leaguer rocked the country. Fans, players, and team owners protested. Even some of Jackie's teammates said they wouldn't play with him. But in 1947, Jackie played his first major league game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He got insults and even death threats along the way, but he made it through the whole season. Well, he didn't just make it. He was voted Rookie of the Year. Jackie could hit, he could field, he could play almost any position. But most impressive was his speed and the way he could steal bases.
And here comes Robinson, trying to steal home. He's safe.
Over 10 years, he led the Brooklyn Dodgers to 6 World Series and became one of baseball's most respected players. Only 5 years after he retired, he was voted into the Hall of Fame. But most important, because of his dignity and courage, he opened the door for other black players to join the league and be accepted by America. He changed the face of baseball forever and continued to struggle for racial equality the rest of his life.
We're quite proud of the accomplishments, the achievements that black people have made. We want to make the kind of contributions that will bring pride and dignity to us.
When my dad died in 1972, thousands of people turned out to honor him. Since then, I've written 2 books about him, and I travel around the country talking about the special person he was. Oh, I have another job too. I'm a vice president for Major League Baseball. And I couldn't have done that if Jackie Robinson, my dad, hadn't paved the way.
A trailblazer in the world of sports. Jackie Robinson.
Congratulations, you're finished with First Person, and a new topic awaits.